Three. Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. We're back from the grave. It's Wildcard Wednesday. Mike Michaels is hard at work at the bench. I'm joined by Brian Goffberg. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Of course, his name is on the house, and tonight he is the guest of the house. Brian is going to share his watch picks of the year. Questionables, high watermarks, underrated timepieces. But first, some wrist shots. Brian, show me what you're wearing tonight, and tell me a little bit about this watch.
So I am wearing a 5164A-001. So this is the Patek Philippe Aquanaut travel time. It's the first travel time that Patek had ever made. It is a 12-hour GMT, which is why I really fell in love with the watch. I'm not a big fan of GMT hands. I think they tend to clutter the dial a little bit, and it was absolutely perfect for me. So most of the time, I'm just looking at a three-hand watch, it seems like, and then when I travel, you know, super easy to use, back and forth, and
you hate GMT hands.
I do hate GMT hands.
So now when this watch came out, like Brian said, it was the first Patek Philippe travel time sports watch and really surpassed, you know, the 5167A as kind of the Aquanaut. It became a real it watch, so much so that when Patek decided to celebrate the Aquanaut travel time as emblematic of 20 years of the Aquanaut this year, that watch became the host of the latest iteration of the Advanced Research Series. So if you want a much more expensive version of Brian's watch in gold, Patek has you covered. That was a highlight of the exhibition in New York.
With blue dial and strap, of course.
Of course,
can't
because
beat that.
Blue is au courant, but I was ahead of the curve because my Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Compressor Extreme World Alarm Tides of Time was rocking the blue back in 2009. And this was actually my first JLC, and the thing I love about it is it's big, it's fun-loving, it's versatile. It's the only watch I've got that can really get wet. And, you know, folks never ask, is it real or how much does it cost? It's always just, that's a really cool watch. What the heck is it?
I still think that this is going to be like the that Jaeger needs to like really relaunch the Compressor series back into, you know, to bring back their sports models.
I agree. They have a great tradition of sports watches, and the Master Compressors were kind of the line that launched them to mainstream prominence in the 2000s. I think they could easily bring it back and have a built-in audience, like Brian says. So I want to also remind you guys that Watch You Want Watch Reviews, my pure review channel for pre-owned watches, is also coming back to life, just like our live broadcasts. I was hard at work in the Lightbox yesterday filming a Patek Philippe 5016R Grand Complication, a 5102 PR Celestial, and I'll show you how to use it, and a 3970J second series because we love those perpetual calendar Patek Philippe chronographs. Those should be going live within the next 24 hours, so check out Watch You Want Watch Reviews to catch those as the cutting edge gets back in motion. Now, Brian, let's play this or that tonight, because the folks remember we used to do a kind of icebreaker feature where I'd ask you to pick between two somewhat related watches, and today they're both precious metal variants of well-known models. The late 90s Panerai Radomir PAM 21, this was the platinum Rolex Cordoba powered 60-piece, effectively a reissue of the 3646, a combat era Panerai. Or would you rather have the 2004 to 2006 sparsely produced and scarcely seen Patek Philippe Nautilus 3711 1G in white gold? Now you're a Patek guy, so I think I know where this is going, but tell me why.
So I am going to go with the 3711/1G. I think that if I was going to have a Panerai, I mean, you know, while I do love that watch, I do love the fact that it has a Rolex movement, like it really wouldn't be the Panerai that I would pick, simply because when you're wearing it, it really just sort of looks like any other Panerai that you'd be wearing.
Yeah.
The 3711/1G, I mean, number one, it was one of the first sports watches of theirs to have a sapphire crystal case back, which I think is super cool. Number two, it's all white gold with a black dial, so I love black dials against white gold. And number three, I just think that the heft of the watch is, I mean, it's as close to, call it the platinum variation that they're making now, but for me, the 5711, which is the current variation of the watch, was always just a little bit too thin and too light.
Yeah.
And
the white gold gives you, with a full bracelet, you know, a white gold Nautilus is going to be a hefty chunk on the wrist, but also nicely balanced top to bottom. With the bracelet to balance out the watch head, the Panerai with the leather strap and the buckle.
It's really top heavy.
But a platinum watch head, yeah, I can see that. Plus, it's worth mentioning, guys, that the PAM 21 was kind of a heritage piece and a museum piece. 30-meter water resistance in a sports watch with a sewn-on leather strap that you got to cut to remove.
What's the Nautilus, 125?
Yeah, well, the Nautilus is true to its heritage. It's 120, so right on the money. I mean, it's a watch you can actually use in the water. And Brian, as you can see from the macro shots, wears his Patek Philippe and wears them out. I think that one's been nicked about 300 times by the car seatbelt buckle. But oh well, more work for the laser welder back in Geneva. Question for you, Brian, coming from the field tonight. This one is coming from Michael Falk asking, any ideas when we can see the new Zenith Dayfi 21s in stores?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
One of the knockouts from Basel this year. I believe that they're going to be coming in the next couple months, but if you send Tim your email, I will actually call the the U.S. president and find out when they're going to be released, and I can email you those details.
Yeah, all the fun things we can do now that we're part of Govberg.
Yeah.
We'll call the U.S. president.
I mean, we call him right now, but my phone is in the corner somewhere.
I was going to ask a guy who knew someone who spread the word, who got a message, who had an email address that he got from Basel on the back of a business card. This guy just calls the president. All right. Welcome Jeremy Land from California. Welcome Simon. Welcome Diego. Welcome Alexi. Guys, thank you so much. Joseph, I agree. All you guys, it's never been so good to be back. So moving on from this or that, I think decided rather decisively in favor of the sparsely seen 3711 white gold Nautilus. Brian's highlight of the Patek Philippe Grand Exhibition. Okay, Brian, what was it and why was it?
So two big highlights for me. Number one was the virtual reality. So for those of you that got to or were in New York to attend the exhibition, on the top floor there was a virtual reality experience where you could enter into a Patek Philippe movement and deconstruct and reconstruct one of their calibers.
And it was almost like you were floating in space along with an oversized movement that you could go inside.
It was like a beam gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought it was great. I thought it added a real sense of interactivity with the exhibition, something that a lot of the times you don't get when you're visiting a museum or honestly something that a watch brand would put on. That's not like a Hublot or a Tag. So I thought it was great. It really showed I think Patek Philippe moving forward into the future using new and exciting ways for their customers to interact with the product.
Yeah, and I think there's an important point within that too. And I went to the Patek Grand Exhibition. I had a great time. It was everything in terms of expense and grandeur and rarity and occasion. But one feature that stood out to me was how accessible it was. Everything was white glove in there, but there was no pretense and it was highly approachable. People were coming in off the streets in their summer attire from 42nd Street around Central Station in New York, and they were bringing their kids. There were kids areas there. And I saw a lot of folks initially like going straight past the museum, past the historic areas, go into the virtual reality and the interactive exhibits, and then going back to the heritage displays. And I really loved that. And I think the VR was kind of the gateway for the folks who weren't already watch nerds.
Yeah. And one of the other really cool things too was you could take pictures of everything. So if you go over to Geneva and visit the factory in Geneva, we've been a couple of times, you're not allowed to take pictures of anything. It's like, phones are banned. So it was really cool to be able to actually take photos of the product, the museum pieces, to look at later. I'd say the second really amazing thing for me was seeing all the artisans there that work on the rare handcrafts. When you go over to Geneva, or if you ever do get the opportunity to go over to Geneva, they're really like sequestered away. They're sort of like the the VVIPs, in the scene there.
Yeah, you don't get to get close to them. It's like seeing the Mona Lisa at the Louvre. It's going to be behind armored glass, a cordon, layers of security guards. That's the way the enamelers and the marquetry specialists are in Geneva.
And you're able to see how all of the pieces come together. Where you have certain pieces that have hand engraving, that have guilloche, that have enameling, and you're able to, have all the artisans in one place to see, how the steps work, how they converse with one another on a project, and it's absolutely amazing. I mean, there's only, in one room they might have had 4 or 5 artisans, and these were 4 of the 5 best artisans in their crafts in the world.
And they loved saying, there were 8 high-level enamelers in Geneva, and they had 2 of them at the show.
Yeah.
So we depopulated the like Genevan count of enamelers. But marquetry was incredible too, actually seeing the woodcuts put together. That's something that you never see. I never see custom marquetry watches. I never see it being practiced. It's probably the least seen rare art, and it was a highlight of the show. Now, underrated watches, Brian. Two that you brought to my attention from opposite ends of the price spectrum. The Rolex Daytona. Now, this was the gold ceramic Oyster Flex. What did you think about this watch? $27,300, not an entry-level timepiece, but you think it's underrated.
So I think when you have a show where there's a lot of great releases, and the two being, I'd say the two most prominent being the new Sea Dweller and the new Sky Dweller, that a lot of other things can sort of fall by the wayside.
Yes.
And you lose sight of some of the other releases. This in particular, I think, is definitely going to be underrated because in recent years, gold Daytonas on straps, I mean, people really forgot about them, and I think people really stopped buying them, which is why they transitioned all of the gold Daytonas from straps to having Oyster Flex. And if the Rose Gold Yachtmaster proved anything, it was that people still want gold Rolexes.
Yes.
They want them to be sporty, and they're sure as hell willing to put them on rubber. And once they put these Daytonas on Oyster Flex, I mean, we really saw
there was a response.
There's a huge response.
People last year were all about the steel ceramic, and that's understandable because it was the lowest priced Daytona with the most attractive aesthetic. But would it hold up when you take the solid gold model, traditionally a little bit of a harder sell, a lower volume piece, and yeah, it has held up, and at a much higher price. Plus, it gave new life to the Daytona, which, let's not forget, in its current iteration traces its history back to 2000. And the Daytona is probably the evergreen Rolex. I mean, that 6-digit reference is becoming something of a classic.
It's almost its own brand in and of itself.
Exactly. There's the Daytona, there's the Submariner, and then there's every other Rolex.
And what's interesting too is generally if there's a whole bunch of releases, so they had their 3 flagship pieces: the rose gold watch with the rose dial, the white gold watch with like the silver S dial, and the yellow gold watch with the yellow dial. But they're still making a lot of other dial variations of the watch.
Yes.
And what's interesting is a lot of times if they release a whole series of watches like this, there's generally one watch that everybody gravitates towards, and that becomes like the one that everybody wants. And those are the hardest to get, but we're seeing just as much of a response from the rose gold variation, the yellow gold variation, the white gold variation. So these are watches that people are looking to buy as just a new daily wear, not simply like they have to have the new steel Sky Dweller with a blue dial. It's like this is going to be, I really think, a bread and butter watch for a lot of people.
And that's really great to hear because I think there's been a push by Rolex to kind of jumpstart interest in the precious metal Daytonas. Part of it has been the new model releases. Part of it's been in the promotion, of course, at the Rolex 24 this year. Journe and Ricky Taylor, the winners overall. Everyone who wins Rolex in their class gets a Daytona. And traditionally, it's been the steel model. This year, Rolex gave them the two-tone. And I thought that was a little bit curious because I remember I saw the Taylor brothers when they were little kids at the Grand Prix of DC in 2002, and now they're race car drivers, so they're a lot younger than I am, and they're sporting two-tone, and I think that's a trend that's durable among millennials. Like older, more accomplished collectors who are at a different earning point in their life are going to go for that solid gold Daytona, but I think there's been a trend, whether pushed by promotion or organic groundswell, for millennials to move towards two-tone, and I don't quite understand it, but I think the Daytona is part of that, and I think Rolex is starting to recognize that in the way it promotes the watch.
And I think people are also looking for watches now to be more wearable in many more situations, and for a lot of guys or a lot of girls out there are obviously now wearing Daytonas as well. Two-tone offers the ability to sort of wear with both white gold, yellow gold, and rose gold, white gold, and really mix and match.
And it's interesting because I'm getting a question here from Pro Tour 2003. Brian and Tim, any guess on any timeline on when the Patek 5650G will be delivered? He's been told by his AD that he's first on the list. I can say this, some people have taken delivery already because I saw one guy on a forum this weekend asking me if he should wear it while riding his bicycle stationary trainer.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Gold watch, rubber strap, water resistant, what's the question? But the point is that they're being delivered.
Love that he's wearing it. But yeah, so they're definitely being delivered. The watch is limited edition to 500 pieces for the world. It is an application piece.
Yes.
So, what that means is that you're going to have to give your name to the AD, and they will have to send in an application to Patek Philippe for you to be able to get the watch. It is probably one of the more popular pieces that they've come out with in the last decade. So more than likely, your AD probably already knows where the watches are going and already knows what their allocation is going to be. So if they haven't sent in an application for you, chances are you may not be getting the watch.
Yeah, the bottom line is that deliveries have started. Patek Philippe did a very good job of starting deliveries of the Basel World novelties almost as soon as the show was over. Watches are shipping, watches are on wrists, so it's mostly just the status of your individual AD in the pecking order globally. And I hate to say it, but that's the calculus of the watch industry.
I did see somebody wearing though the blue rubber strap for the 5650.
Okay.
On a steel 5164, and it looked great.
You're sure it wasn't the 5168?
I am sure it was not the 5168.
Okay. So if you like the look, you can get the strap.
You can get the blue rubber strap.
Boom. That's the easy answer,
yeah.
and the cheaper one.
Yeah.
So now, a question here from Simon, saying the Daytona needs a date and then it's perfect. And you want to know something, Simon? I feel like the one yawning gap in Rolex's catalog, which I believe will be addressed, is some sort of a diving chronograph, and I see that becoming the platform for a date on a Rolex chronograph. I think I can see those two things happening together at some time in the future. No privileged information, I just see a gap in a lineup that's otherwise comprehensive.
Where would you even put the date? Like, I feel like you'd have to like scrunch it up at like the 4 or 5 o'clock.
Well, they could go with a radial date. I don't know, because you don't need to see it underwater.
I hate a radial date.
Yeah, he hates GMT hands and he hates radial dates. Apertures only. Okay, so good question from Mason Manning, and this flows into your next underrated watch of the year, but what do we think of Bell & Ross this year?
Big fan of Bell & Ross this year. So sort of, I guess we can segue into my other underrated watch of the year. So it is the Bell & Ross Orlume. 500-piece limited edition, bee-blasted case, sandwich dial, gray-green calfskin strap, $3,400 retail. I think that Bell & Ross over the last 2-3 years has done a great job of lowering the price points of their watches, coming up with new interesting ideas, but keeping the focus on the vintage inspired round watches, yes, and also their original like BRO 392s and BRO 394s, the big square watches, yeah, and hit that sweet spot of just incredible value. So this watch is 42 millimeters, it's extremely wearable, it's the kind of watch that you can buy and not feel like you're breaking the bank, but also have something cool and unique that like sort of scratches that I need a new watch itch. Retailers are only being allocated, I want to say like one watch each, and if you didn't go to the show to physically see the watch, you're not getting one. So a lot of them are being sold through their e-boutique. I believe it's already sold out because I just went and checked. And I think you're going to see that watch bringing above the retail price. But big fan of what Bell & Ross has been doing, and I think that you're going to start seeing more people starting to pick them up.
I will say this about this new edition. It's technically a BRO 392, which means it has a 42 millimeter case that's wearable by anyone. It is a true square case with rounded edges. And like Brian said, Bell & Ross has two pillars. There's their new 3rd generation vintage series, which is their blended lug round watch, vintage inspired. And then there's the instrument watch. Since 2005, that's really been their icon. That put them on the map in the post-Sin era, after Sin Uren stopped making their watches and Bell & Ross opened their own facilities. What this watch I think does very effectively for Bell & Ross is it starts to reposition the brand into the price point and market segment that was vacated by Panerai as it moved upmarket.
I think so as well, and I think that what happened was for a little bit, Bell & Ross started traveling in the same direction, and they started getting away from the fact that they were the perfect watch in that $3,000 to $4,000 price point or so, and its Tag moved away from that market for a while, Breitling moved away, Omega moved away. And I think them getting back to that market where people can walk in, look for a new watch. It doesn't need to be the only watch that they're ever going to have, because realistically that's not what Bell & Ross is. But it's a cool watch that you can get, and
it's a great watch for the money, and it looks every cent of its price, if not more.
It could have been $1,000 more, I believe.
Yeah, so that's a great thing. Bell & Ross, it's a brand we like a lot. We want to see it kind of get back to that place it
definitely
was.
Definitely should, because you know what, it's like a sleeper. Like we end up really selling a bunch of them, but you never really feel it.
They haven't had, as they say in nautical terms, the bone in their teeth really charging along for a while. I think this gets them back on track, and I think a lot of that is Carlos Rizio getting back into like a direct position of control of the company, especially in the U.S. market. He's got his ear to the ground, and he's really been feeling out the market, trying to get a sense of what people expect and hope for from Bell & Ross. And this is the first response, and it's a great one.
Yeah, and a lot of the press too has been on some of their more expensive pieces, like they did the Sapphire Crystal Tourbillon. And I think that a lot of the times when you see that watch and associate that watch with the brand, it's not really as call it obtainable for a lot of people, but I don't think it's what a lot of people associate the brand with. And that if people even really knew more about these releases like the Aura Lume, I think that you'd see a lot more people flocking to it.
So this is a good starting point. I think Bell & Ross 2017 were real high on the new models. So question coming, and this is an interesting one. This is from Amar Hassan. Tim, I heard luxury wristwatches are cheaper in Southeast Asia. Is that true? Well, there's a couple of factors to consider here. And the first is that when you take Asia as a whole, it's by far the largest regional market for Swiss watches in the world. Something like 40 to 50% of the world's Swiss watch luxury output goes to East Asia. Now that's a big place, obviously. Most of this is going to be Hong Kong, coastal mainland China, Macau, and Singapore. So that's really what, and Japan. South Korea to a lesser extent, but there's a presence there too. So here's the thing, because there is so much inventory, certain brands and certain models will show up discounted at times, but it's very brand and model specific, and a lot of it has to do with the ebbs and flows of regional laws, especially in China over the years with corruption and gifting laws. There have been laws and tariffs that have been imposed to curb watch tourism. So after the laws are passed, there's an adaptation to the laws. It's a cycle that ebbs and flows, along with the business cycle itself and economic fortunes. So depending on where you are and when you are in East Asia, you may be able to get a deal, but you may just as easily find that the buy is in Europe or the United States.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the brand. It depends on whether you're buying new or pre-owned. And again, it seems like there's like that any given Sunday scenario where you just hear about somebody getting a great deal in this place because of the duties and the this and the that. And you know, for the most part, I think that you know, there's good finds to be had everywhere.
Yeah, I would say this. It's one thing to consider that there is a cultural willingness to negotiate a little bit more in East Asia, the Middle East, Southern Europe. If you think about the old Silk Road, the people who were at the very end of it in like Northwestern Europe tended to buy goods that incorporated all of the fees of all of the middlemen cumulatively built in. So you get great selection in Germany, and you get great selection in Belgium, and you get great selection in France and Switzerland and Austria, but there's very little flexibility on price. Culturally, the further east you go, there was more historical room to bargain on goods, and that's something, even when you go to Italy, you feel it more than when you're in, you know, Germany or Belgium. There's a willingness to bargain and make concessions on price if negotiations are in good faith and the buyer is for real. So that's something I've noticed having shopped watches all over the world. Believe me, I look. So especially when they're JLC, as you guys know. So questions coming through, quite a few of them.
Oh, wow, what do we got?
So, Tim, now that you're in Philly, any thoughts for trading out the glasses? I'm not trading out the glasses for anything. I know Danny Govberg wants to retire my glasses.
We might put them on the shelf back there.
They're going to become part of the set at some point. I've been outvoted. Believe me, I have one vote. Danny has all of them, so I've been outvoted. But they're going to become part of the set, and he says we'll bring them back out for special occasions like on-site reporting. If we do Indy, if we do Petite Le Mans, the 24 hours in France, if we do some big thing in New York like the Patek Grand Exhibition, they'll come out of retirement. But these, their days on my head are numbered. Okay, so a question, Tim, where do I find, this is an interesting question, Brian. Watch One no longer has a new arrivals section, so he wants to know, where do you go on our Watch You Want or Govberg websites to find the latest editions?
So I think what they mean is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about the sneak peek watches.
Yeah, we used to have a sneak peek section.
Yeah, so the sneak peek section is for watches that are incoming but haven't hit the site live just yet. They're going through our watchmaking section. I know that during the transition, we weren't getting as many of the watches going live on Watch You Want as we were Govberg, but that is, or should have been corrected, and they're going to be going on simultaneously now. So all the new arrivals should be hitting both sites at the same time, and you can definitely check both sites on all the new arrival watches. The sneak peek section, though, is now going to just be matriculated into the new arrivals.
So what you want to do is you also want to check the tops of the pages that host your favorite brands. We have brand pages on our sites. Go in there, you're going to see the newest arrivals at the top of the list. They move down as new ones are posted. So that's how you find watches in sequence on our site. You just go to the brand page, the ones at the top are the newest. And of course, if you've got a sales associate you're working with, give them a call, tell them what you want. Believe me, we can call you and tell you even if the watch isn't with us. We'll go out and find it. We have a network.
Yeah, and I mean, we have a whole pipeline of watches that are incoming, which is what the sneak peek was. So if there's something specific that you're looking for, you can definitely reach out to one of the guys on our team, and they can definitely check to see if we have something incoming or know of a watch that's that would fit the right bill.
Precisely. So now I have some thoughts on most underrated watches on the market today, and I thought that I would share just a handful of them. I think the Tudor Heritage Advisor at just over $6,000 with a bracelet and an accessory strap. This is a model that's long running. Some version of the Advisor alarm has been in the catalog since 1957, and so it's got real history behind it, but this watch manages to disappear among a collection of the world's most wanted, purchased, and searched sports timepieces. When you talk about the Black Bay, when you talk about even the Pelagos, you're talking about a collection that has a built-in following and rabid loyalty, and somehow the alarm, which is the most complex Tudor, the most complex Tudor in-house movement, and a tremendous value with an on-off function for the alarm, with a radial date, with an alarm power reserve. You're getting a ton here. It's something that has no equivalent in the Rolex catalog, so it's not a baby brother to anything that Rolex Tudor makes. I feel that this 100-meter water-resistant watch is the all-arounder in the catalog. Between both companies, it would be my pick because I just feel it's special, unique, and worthwhile. I love that watch.
Yeah, I feel like I saw people wearing it when it first came out as like a dress watch, like a black tie watch for a little bit.
You could, but it's big enough to be a sports watch, and when you throw it on the strap, I mean, let's face it, guys, it's summer, 100 meters, water resistant. If you're not a pro diver, that's plenty. I like that watch a lot. I think it needs to be mentioned more often, and I think it needs to be talked about as a real alternative to alarm watches at far higher price points, challenging the leaders in the sector. So, the Nomos Lambda. This is a watch that came out about 4 years ago, and I feel like it's a lot of watch for a lot of money for a Nomos. Now, the Lambda is the 42mm gold super flagship dress watch in a round case at Nomos. I think in its Tiefblau configuration, where it has a dark blue dial, 84-hour power reserve, dual barrel, manual wind, hand decorated, this is like a Saxon alternative to the FP Journe Chronomètre Bleu, and at that price point, it's a legitimate challenger. Also, the caliber DUW 1001, all in-house, is one of the few entirely hand-finished and even hand-engraved movements that you can get from Nomos. This is realistically one of the most compelling and least discussed Nomos watches. Like I said, a lot of money, but a lot of watch. Don't discount it. And you're guaranteed to have the only one at your next Red Bar meeting. Whereas the Chronomètre Bleu, it's rare, but you see them. They're out there.
I couldn't imagine getting that watch over a Chronomètre Bleu.
You know what? I'm crazy. I would take that dare. I would take that dare. But then again, you know, I buy my watches to keep. If you buy your watches to buy and trade and sell, you would be probably best advised to buy the Chronomètre Bleu. But then again, he's wearing a Patek Philippe and I'm wearing a Jaeger-LeCoultre, and the heart wants what the heart wants. So, Jaeger-LeCoultre. I come back to the mother house, and the Master Control Black is the most underrated watch of the year. No, it's not new for this year. The Black Dial variant came out in 2015, but this year everyone is about the steel sector dials in the Master collection. And it's true that the Master Control Black Dial does cost $6,350 against the $5,700 for the Sector Master Control. But I will say this, A historic name, a bedrock model, a gorgeous black dial, and now with bracelet options as of this year. The watch has none of the sector dial hype, but it does have a more richly and lavishly appointed dial with applied indices, luminescence so you can actually see it at night, and of course a full deployant buckle versus the sector dial's pin buckle. For me, that does make a difference in the experience and the satisfaction on the wrist. More luxuriously appointed, this is the buy for me. It's only a little bit more in terms of money, but for me, it's a lot more satisfaction.
I tend to agree with you. I definitely think I gravitate more towards the black dial versus the sector. I think that the Master Control series is probably the most value-centric watch that you can buy from a high-end manufacturer if you want an all-around nice casual dress watch. The sector dial moves a little bit away from that. I think it's not quite as traditional, and I think that they're speaking to that, obviously a younger audience, that was buying, the true second and trying to,
a little bit of
change
price
things
point
up a little bit.
positioning going to.
Definitely price point positioning. I mean, Haybury makes a beautiful sector dial. We actually just took in a pre-owned sealed Patek 5565, which was a limited edition made for the Geneva boutique that has a sector dial.
And of course, if you're familiar with the 5296, the 5396, great models that have had sector dial variants in recent years. The thing about the JLC sector dial is it's printed. And for me, I like the hand-applied indices of the Master Control Black. Just a little bit more luxurious, and luxury is the name of the game at this level of horology. We have some comments coming in from the field. Simon is saying he would take the blau, the teeth blau. I'm sorry if I mangled that word first time around, guys. So, comment coming in from Eddie Landsberg.
I think he meant to say chronometric blue.
Oh, okay. So, because he spelled it blau, which would be the Nomos. But I do have Adam. Adam J. Odell saying chronometric bleu for the win.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Brian's totally on your side. I'm outvoted here. Okay, guys, questions coming in. Hey, Viet Nguyen, welcome to Philadelphia. Philly is my home. Signing in from Vietnam on vacation.
Awesome.
You got to stop by our Walnut location. Come on the set, man. You could be my guest of honor. I love bringing in collectors. And this guy's a longtime viewer. He's been with us since the beginning. So, finally, my last kind of underrated watch right now is the Grande Seco Sb Gm 221. Now this is a mechanical automatic. It's not the Snowflake, it's not spring drive, it's not really a sports watch with only 3 ATM water resistance, but if we were honest and open-minded, this is probably the GMT we would all buy. Gorgeous, versatile, you can wear it with anything but a bathing suit, and even then, just don't jump in the water. But 72-hour power reserve, in-house movement, watchmaker assembled and regulated, +5, -3 seconds timing tolerances, all of that with a box sapphire that is gorgeous. Box sapphires, expensive and not universal. This is a well-priced watch at under $5,000. And again, it's got that beautiful wheel-driven polishing, the Zaratsu finish that you see on Grande Secos. Beautiful mirrored, distortion-free. It's a lot of watch for the money with that cream ivory lacquer dial. So for me, this is the GMT that we'd all be wearing if we were honest about our needs and were willing to fully acknowledge that Grande Seco deserves its spot in the pantheon of luxury manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're going to see a lot more people starting to dive into the brand, and what you said about it being undervalued is it's 100% true. I think that you have this connotation in the States that the first time, when they hear Grande Seco, they just think Seiko.
Yeah.
And it's, absolutely not the case. There's some of the finest watches that are currently being made. Mm-hmm. And I guess for me, it's almost like the new Nomos, if that sort of makes sense, where when Nomos first started coming to the US, it was only in a couple of doors. We were one of the first stores. And it was really like watch guys trying to hunt them down and find them, and it was like a big thing when they found a Nomos dealer. And I feel like that's starting to happen a little bit more with Grande Seco, and they're coming out with releases that that people are calling us to find out about before we really even get the watches. So it's really nice.
The brand has buzz, and here's the thing. If you're a watch nerd, people ask me about what car they should buy and what watch they should buy, because they know I'm like a lifer on both fronts. If you're that guy your friends ask about what watch they should buy, of course, tell them what you really feel, but make Grande Seco part of that discussion.
I mean, the spring drive is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, there's a reason why that system is at home in a watch that costs only a few $1,000s or one that costs $400,000. The reason is, at both ends of the spectrum, it's awesome and it's worthy of that positioning. It's something that can be made to offer quartz levels of precision in a mechanical watch in, you know, the $5,000 to $6,000 range, and it's a watch that can also go into something like the Grand Sonnerie and look absolutely at home. The underlying technology is mind-blowing, and it's telling that throughout all of Switzerland now for a decade and a half, only Piaget has attempted anything.
And they've been doing it for a while. It's really just now starting to catch on.
Yeah, and again, if you're that watch nerd guy your friends ask about, spread the word, Grande Seco. Okay, question from Eddie Landsberg. I didn't mean to steamroll you here, Eddie, but you asked a question that Hodinkey addressed, and I never want to duplicate Hodinkey, but what do we think, pin buckle or deployant? Brian, what do you think? Is it dependent or is it absolute?
So I think it's very dependent on the watch. I think that for me, I have a smaller wrist. Pin buckles tend to fit a little bit better. Sometimes the deployment can take up a little bit too much, you know, wrist space. On dive watches, I mean, traditionally dive watches came on pin buckles.
Yes.
So I think that for a lot of brands are starting to move back into the pin buckle for dive watches. I also think on bigger watches it fits better. Like if you have a 44mm offshore on a deployment, the thing is just going to clunk around and move.
Yeah.
Pin
buckle, guys.
You know, pin buckle it's going to fit nice and snug. If it's top heavy, it's going to sit better on your wrist. I think a lot of people over the years have really just associated deployment buckles as being more expensive and richer, and that if you were spending money on a nice watch, it should have a deployment buckle. So I can really go either way. You know, to use Patek Philippe as an example, you know, sometimes you might think that their watch should have a deployment buckle and it's not there because they want to bring the price point down a little bit.
Sure.
And other times, you know, it's there to just add a different level of depth of the watch.
Okay, so guys, here's when I think you should make the call yourself and not be dependent on the manufacturer. If you're unsteady when putting your watch on or taking it off, I've seen many people drop watches on pin buckles. I've seen it happen again and again and again. So if you know that you're that guy who sometimes double clutches and slips the watch, get a deployment all the way. Absolutely. The other thing is, is it in character with the watch? Today I reviewed a Patek Philippe 5016R on a pin buckle. It's a $600,000 watch. The pin buckle is not there to save money. The question is, what is more in character with the watch? It's a 36mm case. Its features are delicate and refined. It's on a pin buckle for the same traditional reasons that it's a 36mm case and was built that way up to 2011. So is it in character with the watch? A deployant on a fine, delicate, traditionally inspired watch might not be suitable. And finally, you want to ask, ultimately, is this a sports watch that you need to adjust on the fly? Because the deployant's terrible for that. Like, this is my JLC sports watch. It's really my only aquatic sports watch that can get wet. This is on a pin buckle, and it comes that way from the factory. It had an accessory strap.
I couldn't even imagine that watch on a deployment.
It has an accessory strap that's leather that has a deployant, but the thing is, the leather strap is not water resistant. It's a more genteel, refined accessory to make this big bruiser semi-suitable for polite company in a suit. But I wouldn't ever put it on that strap. I wouldn't ever put it on the deployant. When my wrist expands in hot weather, and trust me, in Philly, I never expected Miami would follow me this far north, but it's been 95 degrees. I like to be able to adjust my watch quickly.
You could use a short strap that you're in the last hole.
Yeah, that's, well, on my Duomet, I punched an extra 3 holes because I couldn't get it small enough for my wrist. But hey, it fits on the last hole. So, Eddie, you know, we bit the bullet. We answered the Hodinkey question, even though I hate to duplicate them, but it was worth addressing. Okay, Matt Foster, Tim, did you guys move the service center to Philly? I'm waiting on my Omega and got an email from Govberg. Yes, Mike Michaels and his team, they've come up with us. They're all with us, and we're going to be bringing our entire combined Govberg and Watch You Want service online. It's about double capacity, all new facilities, all new tools. We're going to be better than ever. Give us about 2 weeks running start to fully populate the studio. They've got a real complex on the bottom floor of our building. It's no longer 2 or 3 rooms, it's an entire floor. So you're in good hands. All our guys are here. Finally, possibly the most, and we're going to jump straight to the most puzzling co-branding of 2017. And I know Sean and Brian have some great graphics here, but I'm not saying it's wrong, but we're going to talk about that. Roger Dubuis and Pirelli. Okay, so car co-branding is a 40-year industry preoccupation, even if the success rate is about 50-50 when you make a car watch that has a car brand on the watch. But Roger Dubuis thought they would outsmart the industry and just use a piece of a car. So with Pirelli tires and Roger Dubuis, we have a match made in, I'm not really sure where. Brian, what are your thoughts on this?
So I think that they're actually also using used race tires for the strap.
Yes.
I think I read that.
And they come with a serial number that I think individually authenticates the strap.
The piece of rubber, yeah.
And marries it to the tire.
I don't think that there is any connection whatsoever between Roger Dubuis and the tire company. I think that it is an interesting way to sell, 8 more watches. I think it's limited to 8 pieces. So, again, cars and watches have always gone together. I think that you've seen a lot of collaborations between car companies and watch companies. I mean, you have, Porsche, Ferrari, this one, that one.
JLC and Aston Martin.
Yeah,
like
so
everything.
The list goes on. So I think that it was a way to bring that sort of race culture into the brand, while at the same time not having to directly associate themselves with one particular car company. Italian design, Italian company.
Yeah, it's true.
Italian design.
Hublot had to create a special MP series watch for people who are not Ferrari owners. So if you have a supercar that's not a Ferrari, Hublot had to make a neutral model. So you're right, it doesn't tie the customer to any one brand of car.
And the watch already existed. So yeah. I think that they changed some of the material elements, some of the colors. And probably made for like a great party.
I'm not saying it's wrong for the Roger Dubuis brand either, because here, it's not necessarily the size of the watch or the colors of the Roger Dubuis Pirelli series, because this is the brand that brought us the fabulous Couture in 2013, and this year give us the beautifully polychromatic and 48mm monstrously sized Couture Micro Melt, a 4-balanced differentially geared timepiece that blows my mind in every way. It's excessive, I love it. And it's right for the modern day image of the brand. They also gave us the sublime wood-dialed Monegasque chronograph with its incredible micro-rotor in-house caliber Geneva seal and the Chesterfield stitch leather strap that I love. I eat that up. The brand has great offerings. And the brand has changed dramatically over 22 years it's been in business. From the Roger Dubuis of the late 90s.
Those are some of my favorite watches ever made.
Mine as well. I think they're a great pre-owned value too. To this Roger Dubuis Easy Diver, we've got a picture of that watch like between the founding of the company and the modern era.
Rich man sub.
Yeah, exactly. Or a legitimate Royal Oak Offshore alternative for those who must have a Geneva Hallmark watch. And now there's this tire tie-in. So I'm not sure if it's too abstract or trying too hard to be different, but I have some theories about where I think Roger Dubuis sits as a brand in the automotive world. So I'm going to say I like the colors of the Pirellis. I'm going to hold off on judgment until I see them in person. But let's work our way around the Geneva manufacturers. For me, Patek Philippe is the Porsche. They're the leader, they're the first with technology, they're the ones who are, relative to these others I'm mentioning, slightly higher volume, and they build the most solid basic product. Now, FP Journe, smaller volume, more boutique, is like Singer Porsche. The classic Porsche, highly modified and refined to the utmost, to taking it to the 11 in a way that's true, faithful, and lovingly dedicated to the original fabric of the car, while adding modern refinement, features, luxury, and reliability. So then Roger Dubuis is the horological equivalent of Rauwelt, the Japanese Porsche tuner of Akira Nakai. Everything is impeccably fabricated, detailed, and priced accordingly from Akira Nakai. And he does amazing things with the raw materials that he grafts onto these cars. But a huge amount of energy is expended. It's all irreproachable on that level, but the result is immensely polarizing. That's Roger Dubuis, and I think they're comfortable with that image.
Yeah, I think that they're comfortable being in the, they know who their customer is. They are creating watches now specifically for that customer base. And I think that for many years they were trying to reinvent themselves. They were trying to gravitate towards all price points. They wanted to be something for everyone. You know, they wanted to get that guy that is aspirational and wants to spend $20,000, and they wanted to hit that, and they wanted to hit nice diamond ladies watches and entry-level ladies watches, a dress watch, sports watch. And I think that they're finally coming to realize, like, this is their niche and they're going to own it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The watches right now are not seeking to move 25,000, 35,000, 45,000 units.
Yeah, it's limited to shade pieces for the world.
Yeah, they're like a 4,000 to 5,500 unit brand, and proud of it, because a huge proportion of their watches are tourbillon. Almost all of their flagship products are skeletonized. None of their watches are timid or bashful.
And their designs are beautiful. I mean, some of their ladies' pieces, like, you know, if it said, you know, a different name on the dial, I think it'd be like complete sellout. And nothing against Roger Dubuis, but it, you know, if it said Cartier, for example, like, I think that
it's a new brand. It's still working its way along. So I think they've found their identity, and they're a strong brand, and the product is awesome. Pirelli, guys, only you can decide. But if I had to say, I would love to see Roger Dubuis on the next Pirelli calendar.
The Easy Diver skeletons for value are just awesome.
Yeah, I think there are more synergies that they could explore with this relationship. The Pirelli calendar, Pirelli's now making road bike tires. Join me on that front, Roger Dubuis and Pirelli. I think there are places for this partnership to go that a conventional auto co-branding could not. So we look forward to big things here. Roger Dubuis, Pirelli, thrill us. Brian, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Guys, we are back for real. Watch You Want Watch Reviews starts getting updated again tomorrow. We will be back on Friday with Josh Thanos. Thank you. I'm Tim. He's Brian. Actually, he's Brian, too. He's Harrison. He's Sean. This is Watch You Want. Thanks for logging on.